Who's the next one? Who's the next Solana, the next ETH of this cycle? That's where the real money gets made. I think it's the Move protocol. That's the sui aptos, may the best man win kind of game there, because it's different, it has a lot of different use cases. And then there's Cosmos, Celestia, and others. Those feel like, okay, that's the game to be played. Maybe Avalanche again, but doesn't feel like it should have happened. It got it last cycle, doesn't feel like it's getting full scale adoption. It's kind of in that lower tier. Layer 2s, that's a whole different game being played out, but that's not this game. So that's how I'm thinking about it. And there could be something else entirely that I've missed just because it's not on my radar screen, because, when it happens fast.
A massive altcoin season is just around the corner, coming right after the Bitcoin halving as we transition from crypto spring to crypto summer. This is a period when we are going to see dramatic price movements from various altcoins all over the crypto space, which is why you should pick wisely which coins to accumulate for maximum returns. Each cycle there is a standout winner. First it was Ethereum seeing huge gains, then we saw Solana. There will undoubtedly be a clear winner in this crypto bull cycle as well. This is the latest prediction out from Real Vision CEO and macroeconomic expert Raoul Pal. In his latest interview, Raoul shares his top picks for the altcoin season and crypto summer, giving us a glance into his own portfolio as he prepares for the upcoming bull run. Raoul was one of the highest performing investors in 2023, so he is clearly very skilled and experienced in spotting big opportunities. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video as Raoul gives us his crypto strategy to making the most out of this cycle. Also guys, if you enjoy finance content, consider subscribing to the channel or liking the video. It's free and you can always change your mind. Now here's Raoul Pal with his latest crypto altcoin picks and portfolio strategy.
What benefits? We have observed is things that are getting adoption that are earlier on the adoption curve outperform. So ETH killed it last cycle as a chain going from, it's been proven now, it's gone through its bad times, Lindy effect in play, okay, now it then exploded 47x from the low, right? And then established itself firmly as the second most dominant player in the space. If you remember last cycle, there was 3 breakouts, really? Well, 4. One was Luna, that went. 3 breakouts. One was Solana, one was Avalanche, and the other was probably Polygon. Now, who was the winner? Well, the one that got the most adoption ended up being Solana. It was the one that came from the bottom, down 97.5% from this cycle, like ETH was the previous cycle. It's gone into now accepted as an adopted ecosystem at scale. Who's the next one? Who's the next Solana, the next ETH of this cycle? That's where the real money gets made. Because those first cycle, you got nothing to compare it against. You can't say, oh, it's already up 5x versus its all-time high. You've got nothing, just blue sky charts. And that's why you tend to get these ridiculous first-time runs, like Solana last time. And I'm very interested in what that's going to be. I've got 2 or 3 ideas what it might be. Who the hell? I mean, I'm just not good at this bit. I'm good at the next bit, which is see what's getting adoption properly. And then that trade is relatively easy. This trade is more difficult to figure out what is it going to be. People shouldn't emulate me because I've got a lot of experience with risk taking and I'm comfortable with the risk that I'm taking. I don't use leverage. I use external custody, multi-sig, all of the things, and I'm very focused on my thesis, which is, you're dead right. It's the network thesis. So I then look at charts of assets relative to each other. So I was looking at the Bitcoin ETH chart, which I follow closely, which has been underperforming, and I think it's basing, as we talked about. But the chart to me that was a standout in 2022 was the Sol ETH chart. And that was the chart that got me buying Solana and then going all in. Much like I went into ETH all in about September 2020. I just did it earlier in Solana. And so I am 80% Sol. All of my ETH is now NFTs. I've been buying high-end art NFTs. I then have a bunch of the portfolio in the fund of hedge funds in exponential age asset management. And I have 1% in stupid shit like WIF and Doge and Bonk. Got all of those, but that's 1%. So even when I post about it on Twitter, I'm sure some joker in 2026 is saying, you were recommending WIF. Just to be clear, I've got like in all of meme coins and everything else, 1% of my portfolio. I'm 90% or 80% Solana. I think the important thing is the DTFU strategy, number one. Second, educate yourself. Educate yourself from the right people. So get your sources of information from the right people and actually do some education. There are available courses, that are free or paid that are valuable. Educate yourself, because then eventually, let's say it's cycle 2, you too can take the ETH bet of the last cycle or the Solana bet of this cycle or whatever it is. I'm still not good enough to do the next bit, which is like, who's going to be the next one of this? I can do that. Who's going to be the number 3? That's easier, but you can't do that without educating yourself, studying the space, understanding the players, listening to the narratives, finding out where the opportunities are. So that's the key thing. DTFU, just keep it simple, stupid, but learn. And next time around, you'll really make money. They're all terrified of DeFi. The authorities, put it that way. What do you mean you can have a bank without bankers? What do you mean you can have you can have an exchange without people? To them, this is alien concept because it is really the antithesis of the existing system. So they've never been comfortable. And then they use the ridiculous KYC AML thing, which really all KYC AML is to increase tax takes. So everyone has to declare everything. That's really what that's about. It wasn't really about terrorism financing and stuff like that. It's really about they need to know where your money is at all times so you can't leave the system. Okay, fine. We live in their countries. They want those rules. It is what it is. They just don't like this whole system yet. When you're in a monopolistic power situation, look at Google's inability. And I know the Google Web3 team well. They understand it.
Yes, they do.
They think it's great. But even the CTO of Google, as far as I'm aware, is a huge Web3 fan. But they can't do anything because it's going to disrupt their own business. The US is the incumbent monopoly of money, global money, and it's fearful of changing its system in case it loses control of the system. So this is why they've kind of, if you think about it on this kind of spectrum, Coinbase good, Binance bad.
Yeah.
Right? Because Coinbase is within the walls. They've blessed them with a monopoly, basically, and shut out Binance, which is the world's largest exchange, which is probably Chinese controlled in as much as Coinbase is US controlled. And therein lies the separation, much like Chinese tech firms, US tech firms. So this game is being played out literally everywhere we see. Even the ETF for them is quite funny because the ETF they think of is keeping the money within the system, right? So it has to go through the intermediaries and the middlemen and all the checks and balances that they've got so they know where it goes. I actually think of it differently. I think it's a Trojan horse of crypto land put into fiat world. Because what you do is you give people a taste of what this is. And they will move out the risk curve. They always do. And they'll come into crypto land. So I think the SEC and the US government think that it's a victory to channel assets through the ETF. I think it's a victory for crypto land as a Trojan horse. Bitcoin's got the seal of approval. ETH will get the seal of approval at some point. What you've now created is capital inflows. Now, this is not direct investment because it doesn't go directly into crypto land. It's like a trade deal. That money gets recycled in the crypto economy and out the risk curve. Profits get recycled into VC. VC creates new products, which create the new opportunities for the next cycle. So I don't think it slows it down because that still continues. Mum and pop in Ohio are not going to be using Uniswap to trade, some 100th token. So I don't think it really matters. Almost every other central bank in the world of certain size is working on CBDCs. The US won't because it's terrified of making the move. And the US has a history of this, and I wrote some threads about this in the past. So after the US left the gold standard, right, everybody now needed to exchange currencies with each other. And the US was like, well, we don't really want to be involved in this because they were worried about what was going to happen to the dollar. So the UK started the foreign exchange markets, and it became the biggest market the world has ever seen. And the UK dominated that market ever since. Second one was the offshore lending in dollars. So the US was really worried about dollar circulation outside of the US. Didn't know how to deal with it. Same thing with a reserve currency, we're on to fuck this up. So they just basically restricted US bank lending to various entities. So the UK started the Eurodollar market, which is the offshore dollar market, and it siphoned through other global banks. It became the largest market the world has ever seen. The US missed all of those. So that's why LIBOR, the London Interbank Offered Rate, is the interest rate for the entire world, or was until they've just changed it to SOFR. Then it happened again in the very late 80s, where the derivative market in the US was basically the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and the Chicago Board of Trade. But then the swaps market was developed, and it was an OTC market, and it required bank regulatory capital. The US regulators, to protect their own exchanges, said, we're going to make it so hard for you to do that you're not able to. So the UK started the swaps market, which then became the whole OTC derivative market, which based out of the UK, which became a $1.4 quadrillion market. So the US has a history of doing this in its fear of screwing up. I get it. You're the incumbent. You've got a fear factor. The UK has an innate ability to arbitrage that. So they see the opportunity. That's why the City of London is so big. The UK stock market's small. It's because they took all of the business from the US. And what was very interesting is they see the US fumbling the ball yet again with crypto. And the UK stood up and said, we want to regulate this properly. We want to bring it here to the city, and we want to turn this into a huge market. And they've done this. This would be the fourth time. And, you know, I remember speaking to the guys at Coinbase about this. I think it was Brett who runs their institutional side. I'm like, he grew up like me in the traditional finance industry. Back in the 90s, all of the main offices of all of the US banks was London. Goldman's biggest office, London. JP Morgan's biggest office, London. Morgan Stanley's biggest office, London. All of them, because of this. And slowly, after Basel III regulations came in the early 2000s, capital went back to the US because the US didn't put such stringent things onto the balance sheets of the banks. So money flowed back. So it just feels that the opportunity here is this whole thing to happen all over again.
So there's Raoul Pal sharing his ultimate crypto strategy and revealing which altcoins he has his eye on in the upcoming bull run. Raoul suggests that in addition to Solana, which performed exceptionally well last cycle, there are two ecosystems likely to emerge as major players in this cycle. One is the Move protocol, which he describes as a different kind of game with various use cases. The others are Sui and Celestia as potential outperformers. Raoul also mentions Avalanche, which had significant success in the previous cycle. Ultimately, Raoul acknowledges there could be other promising projects he hasn't considered, as developments in the crypto space can occur rapidly and unexpectedly, so it's always best to make thorough research as we head into altcoin season. Before we go, a quick reminder for those who are keen on staying updated in the fast-paced world of crypto and Bitcoin, consider subscribing to our daily 5-minute crypto newsletter. It's the concise resource for the latest expert predictions, breaking news, and top on-chain analysis trusted by over 60,000 subscribers for insightful crypto investment information. Click the first link in the description to join our community and elevate your crypto investment knowledge today. Anyway guys, hope you all enjoyed today's video and that provided you with some value. I'll see you all in the next one, and as always, all the best.